Hi, everyone. First of all, I'm nervous. I'm Marcelo Salud. I'm the CEO of YourGrayMatters. I am really nervous. This will be the first podcast of what I hope is a bunch of them. I am honored, absolutely honored, to bring Eliane Nobile here. Well, I've known Eliane for many years since she was, like 9 or so. So we've known each other, like at least 12 years since you were 9. And Eliane basically invented the Inflight publication industry. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Since 2007, she's been a media company, EN Media Services, and I'm honored for another reason too. Eliane actually came up with one of the core things we're going to address in this podcast that I hope to have many of them. One last week when we had a glass of wine, and she said, "Why don't you try this?" And you'll hear it. So, Eliane, thank you very much for being the first one. I am truly honored, and I mean, there's no other way to say it. So, quickly, this is something that I've always been curious about. Like, what is the defining moment? The moment when you said, "Yeah, this is really me," and you define yourself professionally.
Okay. And before that, I want to say thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm honored myself. I know you a long time, so not only are you a friend, but I've always respected you in this industry. So it means a lot to me to be here. So thank you. My defining moment in this industry. I've always been in advertising. In 1998, I was happily working at Young and Rubicam, one of the world's great agencies for Latin America here in Miami, on a great account for Citibank. And I got a phone call from someone who I was very close to, a friend. He was also in the industry, but he was more in TV. And he said, "I need you to trust me. You need to send me your resume, and I can't tell you what it is." And I was taken aback and thought, Marcelo, I mean, his name was Marcos. And I said, Marcos, I trust you, but like, why? I'm happy in my job. He goes, you got to trust me. So I did. And then I got a phone call from, at that time, it was American Airlines Publishing. And they were the only airline that had a publishing group. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that. And they called me in for an interview, and they told me about this amazing whole project, this Latinization effort that American Airlines had instituted in being the hub of Latin America in Miami. They were doing this whole Latinization effort for all their Latin passengers, signage in the airports, translators, special services, and the genesis of the whole project was a in-flight magazine in Spanish and Portuguese, only written for them, about them, and what they wanted to read about. I said, I'm going to be honest, I know nothing about media. I come from the advertising side. And they said, no, you're perfect for this. You're perfect for this. You know the culture, you know the language, and moreover, you know people. And that's really what you need to do. I said, okay, let's do it. Cut to 10 years later, I was the advertising director. It was undoubtedly the highlight of my career. It was phenomenally successful, but it also was part of the project. I also worked on custom
Wait, tell us
projects.
the name of the magazine. We're
Oh,
waiting.
did I not say Nexos? Did I not say American Airlines Nexos? Sorry. I'm also a little nervous. This is my first podcast. American Airlines Nexos. And then, of course, the reason why it was under wraps is because it had to be announced by Peter DeLaura, who at the time was CEO of Latin America here in Miami for American. And they needed to make the big announcement in the media and so forth. Um, it was a big adjustment, Marcelo. I went from the client agency side, right, being the liaison between customers, clients, I'm sorry, and then going to selling media. But it opened up this whole amazing world, very creative, special customized projects, in-flight TV, magazine, and if I'm allowed to say, was very successful. Something that they had planned over 2 years happened in the first issue. So that was the defining moment for me. My whole career took a whole entire different path. Did not expect to go into media, and there I went.
And there you were.
And
So,
there I
speaking as somebody, like, okay, so I checked my program to date with American Airlines, and I got 4.9 million miles.
Oh my.
So I guess I was part of that change. I mean, I've been traveling like a banshee since at least 1984. So I've been traveling like crazy.
Yes,
I've
I
seen a
know.
lot of changes, but one of the things you and I discussed, which I found absolutely enthralling, I mean, like it really changed my way of thinking, is we all expected changes. I mean, like you go through life, you expect change. But what change that you would have never in a million years think, oh yeah, it's going to change? What
Yeah,
really took you
never
by
in a million
surprise?
years. And and thank you for bringing that up. Well, we had discussed this over our initial meeting, and when we were talking about it, it was sort of like a focus for me because it was sort of part of my story for the last few years. You know, when people, I mean, the pandemic was something that we could all agree on. Nobody expected that, right? And that definitely affected airline. But even before that, there were some other things that were happening politically, taxes, and Latin America started to buy their own media. But what I did not expect was the whole in-flight advertising category to go away, like to just go away. And it was, it's something that you have no really, you don't expect it. That's all I can say. So to answer your question, that is number one. And then number two, the pandemic, as I mentioned, and then of course, advertising itself just took such a different turn with digital and budgets and things like that. So the whole in-flight category was just gone.
But essentially, all conspired to just vanish it. You know, it doesn't exist anymore.
No, no, it
It's
doesn't exist
amazing,
anymore.
at least to me, because I remember reading Nexos, I remember watching Inflight TV, and now I don't. So, like,
Yeah, no, and and also some of the clients and the advertisers, I think that that was such a captive audience for them, and I think even they didn't expect it. So you sort of had to go along with the flow and say, well, what can I do now? We have to reinvent and go on, right?
well, and
Um,
that brings me to one of the most important points of being, of a certain age, as they say, which is, yes, there's always the need to reinvent yourself. And I think we've all done it and we're professionally active because we all do it. We all reinvent yourself. But like through all of these changes, and you've had the same media company since 2007, EN Media. And
right.
yet, if you were to look at it, it would be like a Porsche 911. You know it's a Porsche 911, but it has nothing to do with the new one. Yet they're all Porsche 911s. I mean, there's a certain equity to it. How did you, keep current? Actually, let me put it this way. Let's say you were talking to somebody who's 20. How would you say, hey, keep current this way or that way? How did you do it?
Well, even with EN Media Services, I then represented LAN Airlines in flight for 10 years there. So when I say it really changed, it completely changed. How did I reinvent myself? The thing that I learned, and I think everybody can say the same really, is that if you want to be successful, my priority has always been the cornerstone of anything is service and client relationships. That's something that I don't want to say it's old world or old school, but I think I saw it. I know I used it quite a bit, and that was paramount to me. So anything that I did, I had to the industry was done. So you have to just sort of remember what is essential, and that's service and client relationships. So because you do, you have great client relationships for years, you can always keep that going. And then I had to learn new things. I had to learn new things about media. I had to
Tell
learn
me
new
about the
things.
new things you learned.
Oh
Like,
goodness, all about digital and filmmaking. I took on a client who was making films out from Portugal, and that was another industry that had drastically changed, right? Because a
yeah.
lot of budgets were going away, and you can do a spot and put it on social media, and you didn't have to pay the airline, $50,000 or the cable company. So a lot of learning, and then I kind of like diversified into taking that sort of client service principle is working on sponsorships and partnerships and different collaborations and promotions with clients. And and that's sort of like in the path that I've taken. I've had customized projects for the last few years, and you know it's kind of refreshing, to be honest. I mean, yeah, there are days that you think back, but you're like, you know, this is just as important, you know, because that's also a lot of the budgets that used to go to media are now being used for promotional type things and more interactive, and it's kind of exciting actually. So I'm learning a lot from the younger people around me, um, and the relationships I had and the new ones that I'm making at some of the agencies and things, because there's a lot of knowledge there too, you know, from the younger.
Well, I tell people that age discrimination also works the other way. Like if somebody says, "Oh, she's 21, what does she know?" Well, that's also age discrimination. There are some really bright people who are, you know, 20 something, and I
Yes,
deal with them. And then there's, also not that many bright people. I don't know. There's everything, but age has nothing to do with it. It's just a question of, the individual person. So
right,
I tell people, age discrimination is a double-edged sword. We got to be careful with it. We cannot sin the same way that we don't like to be sinned against. We don't want to be discriminated because, we've managed to last a bit longer,
right.
but, we also shouldn't do it. So,
Yeah, ideally,
yeah,
yes,
no, and it's interesting. Well, one of the ways you reinvented yourself, which I find, as a heavy metal fan, you now work with the Palm Beach Opera, which is like absolutely unknown territory for me. So tell me a bit about it. Like, what are you doing for them? Like, how
yes.
do you change them a bit? Because I'm sure you changed them a lot.
Yes. So the Florida Grand Opera, I've taken that on as a project as well, and with them, I it's a lot of again these sponsorship clients sponsoring. You know, the arts is such an amazing area. You know, I think not just because I'm a big fan of the arts, but it's a very different industry, very dynamic, amazing people. You know, the artistry, the talent, and everything else. And yet, you know, you kind of work on more the business side to promote that, to bring that out, to bring the interest in. You know, and partnering with clients that wouldn't have normally even looked at that industry, and then suddenly seeing that the opportunity, the audience that it provides. So, so there's been a lot of that sponsorships, events. Bringing the arts out and bringing the audience to them, to some of the clients.
And in a sense, it's very interesting because on the one hand, yes, you are, bringing new audiences and better audiences to clients, but also you're, furthering the arts. You're allowing the arts to exist, a bit more because you are bringing, like revenues to them that, might have been difficult to get before.
Right.
So from there, one of the things, I don't want to put words in your mouth or whatever, but like, I see that one of the things that is very important to people is relationships. Also, you have established relationships. You care about people. You're very sincere in the way you care about people. So that itself has helped, the Florida Grand Opera, if you look at it, and it helps all of your clients. So I'm taking that lesson also, like from you. Relationships are very important. So one of the things that we had talked about, and then um, I would have to censor myself on this one, like I would use swear words, but I don't want to use swear words in at least as the podcaster. Like I used them the other day in a podcast, but I was only the guest, so I figured, like they're not gonna tell me, to shut up or something. I don't know. Well, like I don't want to do it, but
No one will ever tell you shut up.
yeah, what like if you were talking, because I have this conversation mentally a lot. You're talking to the CEO of a company that might hire you or hire somebody else or whatever, and like all of the time I'm thinking, dude, age has nothing to do with it. You gotta hire the talent. If I know more than the other guy, hire me. If the other guy knows more, then hire him or her. I don't care. But what would you say to let's say the CEO of a company that would be in a hiring position of how do you make a really good decision if you're that CEO? what would you say, like look out for, like one, two, three, value this?
I would have to say the first thing is to sit down and talk to whoever, either a candidate or someone that you value or consider. There's so much to learn. I think now between Zoom calls and just emails and everything else, you kind of lose that. And there's such richness in people's stories, and it doesn't have to go on forever. It could be brief, but sometimes it's just the right question, and you open up this treasure trove of experience or value that you would never have seen. So don't miss that. Take the time and look at the person, look through a different lens than you would just kind of like with either numbers in your head or very strict objectives. Like you almost want to say, and I don't have the right words for this, like be a person before you're the manager. Bring that in. It's invaluable, and it will really change the course of everything, including for yourself. There's always some learning. There's always some wonderment in some things, to learn and to hear about people.
Well,
I
that's
think I would
great.
say that.
Be the person before you're the manager. That's great because it allows you to connect with the other person. And, at the end, never mind, you get an employee that's better for your company. You actually get a person who's better for your company.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
love
if I may even relate it to when they gave me this incredible opportunity to come in and to interview with American Airlines Publishing. I did not have the experience. I was not in media. I was in anything. But yet they saw something, you know. And many times when I've hired salespeople and everything else, they probably would not have fit the description. But you see something because you're looking, you're open, and I think that's something that don't that can apply to anything.
right. And of course, you didn't have experience because, of course, the industry didn't exist. So you basically have
Right.
created. I mean, like, so they're looking for something better. I think. I don't think that it would be a question of looking for experience. I think it would be a question of looking for somebody who is capable of moving, like a friend of mine used to say, the peanut forward. Like, can you really move this forward? So anyway, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank
I,
you.
I, I at least owe you some wine and empanadas.
Oh, anytime. A lot of good things come from those wine and empanada meetings. So
Absolutely.
anytime, right?
Anytime.
Good things
Excellent.
come. Thank you
Well,
so much. It's always a
thank,
pleasure speaking with you. And again, for the opportunity. Great. You're going to have much success with these podcasts. Thank you for letting me be part of it.
thank you very much for agreeing to be part of it. I really appreciate it. And big hug. Thank you again.
You too.
Okay. Bye bye.